when I started this journey at 370, I just wanted to get back to 280. That was it. And then when I got to 280, I was like, ooh, let's get to 250 so you can go skydiving. I've always wanted to go skydiving, and I was always too big to go skydiving. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go skydiving. And now at, 242.8 pounds, I'm thinking to myself, I'll wait till I'm 225 because I'm starting getting scared of skydiving. I still want to go, but let's give it a little bit more.
Welcome to Movie Give by Interrupt Hunger. I interview experts in exercise, nutrition, and food insecurity. People who've transformed their lives through healthy habits, and community health workers building healthier communities. Our goal? Bring these proven methods back to Boerne and make it the healthiest small town in Texas. Then share these blueprints with you to create healthy small towns all across this incredible country. Before we get to today's guest, here's a quick message about our Donate Your Weight program, which helps you celebrate your weight loss victories by asking you to donate $1 for every pound you lose to help fight hunger in your neighborhood.
If you've ever said, I know what I need to do to lose weight, I just need to do it, then this challenge is for you. We help you turn your knowing into doing. The Interrupt Hunger 12-Week Weight Loss Challenge is a plan to help you lose weight by creating healthy habits in a fun and easy way. While you create new habits, we use compassion and community to help you stay motivated long enough for your new habits to stick. Bring the 12-Week Weight Loss Challenge to the places you live, work, and pray. Once a week, come together to exercise as a team in your neighborhood or at a local park. Then, once a month, come together to give back to your community by volunteering at a local food bank, food pantry, or soup kitchen. And finally, once a month, donate your weight to celebrate your weight loss victories. Donate at least $1 for every pound you lose to help fight hunger. 100% of proceeds benefit a food pantry in your area. You already know exercise makes you feel better. You already know the difference between healthy and unhealthy eating. And you already know it feels really good to give back. The Interrupt Hunger 12-Week Weight Loss Challenge helps you to be intentional about how you move, eat, and give, and helps you turn your knowing into doing. Visit interrupthunger.org to join as an individual or start a team. Contact us with any questions. We're always happy to chat.
Hey everyone, it's Jolly here with Interrupt Hunger's Movie Give podcast. Thanks for joining us again today. We got Brian Gutierrez from San Antonio, Texas. Brian, thanks so
Thanks
much.
for having me, Jolly. Super excited and pumped to be here, man.
Appreciate it, man. So Brian and I just, I don't know, just been a few months since we've known each other, but we've had some really, really neat conversations. You're a smart guy. I love where your heart is. You wear your heart on your sleeve. It really kind of drives everything you do. And you've told me about this health journey that's happened. So why don't you just introduce yourself? Just if this is your first time listening, these How I Did It episodes are kind of, interspersed in between experts in exercise is medicine, food is medicine, food insecurity. We focus on people doing really neat community health initiatives. But today is all about you and your journey. So I like to ask people, start with your personal dynamics, like how old you are, your family dynamics, and then your work dynamics, what you do for a living. And then we'll just go from there. All right. So introduce
Yeah,
yourself if you don't mind.
absolutely. Well, Brian Gutierrez, I am 43 years young, I guess is what they say when you get over 40. And I'm married. My wife and I actually just celebrated our 20-year wedding anniversary. And we have two teenage daughters, and they are 17 and 13. And I can just say that, our family dynamic is, I mean, man, we are really built around a faith-based household, very spiritual. We're United Methodist, and we are 100% just, following the journey that Christ has led for us. And it's a blast. And it's providing us, I guess you could say, the sense of security and the hope that I think some people just kind of need in all of their life. And that's what we have found. And Abby and I found that and built our entire marriage around that. I guess I could say, from a work dynamic, I work for Neo Home Loans, Neo Home Loans powered by Better, and I'm a mortgage advisor. We call ourselves co-creators, and the reason is because we have very much a say in where the direction of this business is going. We feel that the mortgage industry is changing constantly, especially with all the tools and AI and technology that, is coming out in every industry. We've really embraced that and we've championed it. And the purpose of, I guess you could say, my journey in lending is to teach the consumer that if you're going to borrow money, you're going to borrow money the smartest way possible by just having a conversation with Brian Gutierrez, right? Or somebody at Neo Home Loans powered by Better. So I know it sounds a little like, wow, that sounds different. And it's meant to, right? It's meant to, just make the consumer, make the industry partners just kind of go, I've never heard that before. And there's a reason behind it. Providing a holistic approach to make sure that people don't just borrow big bags of debt after buying a house, but they know how to manage that debt down to zero so they can grow, I guess you could say cliche term of generational wealth that everyone always talks about, but there's never a how behind it. So essentially that is, my work side. Man, my health journey has been it's been eye-opening. I mean, I've kind of gone through everything. I've gone through the weight loss pills. I've gone through the fad diets. I've gone through the intermittent fasting, starving myself, all of the things you can think of, right? And I've done that, I would say, my adult life. I realized probably I want to say I was about 22, 23, that I just had to do something different. Started working out, started eating a little better. And, I lost some weight. I went down from, about 300 and, I would say like 30 pounds down to about 280 pounds. And then I met my wife, fell in love, and sometimes the rest is history. You just start eating out a lot and doing all the things that a newly couple does. But I will say that as life went on with having kids, being married, I started to really bring those pounds back on, and I started suffering a lot, health with not feeling well, not waking up at my best, having to deal with sleep apnea, having to, just really go through what I felt was a little bit of a struggle with my own mindset and where I really wanted to be. And so, as I started to kind of, go through the motions of trying to feel better, trying to eat better, I still found myself making, poor decisions, poor food decisions is what I call it. And it all kind of comes back to work, right? I had a gentleman come in from Octane Athletic Performance. He's still the owner of that gym, still operating in the Dominion area. Jason Benavides, he walked in with a giant jug of water, and I thought to myself, oh, it's one of these guys. But it really did give me an eye-opening experience, because in that conversation, he saw something in me. And I don't know if he saw something in me in my mannerisms or how I talked or what or maybe it was the fact that I was drinking, a Bill Miller cup full of, Dr. Pepper at the time, that he was like, man, and he's this health guy, so he definitely recognized that. He invited me out to his gym, just to to do something different that I wasn't doing before. And Jason basically put me in a program called Fit and 50. So I had 50 days where I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be at the gym at 5. And it was a 50-day run of just health. And in that Fit and 50, they talked about, nutrition. They talked about, of course, diet, exercise, and the right type of exercise. And I really fell in love with HIIT training. I had never done that before, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, kind of thing. And doing all these different circuits where you're going upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, and it really did just jumpstart my mindset, because I started to naturally lose weight. And, I will say for myself looking inward, I mean, I started to naturally lose weight because, I was a bigger guy. I wasn't doing any physical activity. And when you start adding physical activity and eating right, hey, lo and behold, ta-da, you start losing weight, right? So, as at that time when I jumped in, this was circa 2000 and I want to say 17. So to go that time frame of just raising babies and everything and doing all those things, it in 2017 when I met Jason, that's when the eye-opening thing came that said, hey, I can take control of this. I can feel better. I can fit into better clothes, right? I used to joke that I would say that, I just longed for the time to be able to run into like, a Neiman Marcus or a Dillard's, right? And just buy something off the rack that wasn't on a big and tall rack. Because that's where I was shopping constantly, was big and tall. And it got to a point where I didn't have to accept it anymore. I just needed to make the change. So when that mental kind of, I guess you could say a confirmation came that I can do this, that's where I started kind of shedding the weight, shedding the pounds. So from 2017 to about 2019, I was working out with Jason, going through the motions of just kind of like losing weight. At the time, Jolly, I was 370 pounds when I started.
Wow.
So, I started bringing myself down. And again, if you follow on the story, sorry, it's a little choppy here, but to be down to 280 pounds in 2004, meeting my wife, right? And then going all the way up to 370 pounds after two kids and, marriage and all those things. We were 12 years married at that point, when I met Jason and I met Octane and the team there. That's when I started thinking to myself, like, man, this can't get better. And as you get older, right, I started to notice that friends were having health issues, friends were having, trials and issues, just from, being overweight, whatever you call it. And so at the end of the day, I thought I got to do something. And when I kind of took Jason on this offer of, trying this Fit and 50 out, going those 50 days really, really changed my mindset about food. Not necessarily where it is now. Today, my mindset's a little bit more like, food is fuel and, what you put in your body, really affects kind of the next day, the next few hours. Like, but back then it was just like, I can change my mindset around portion control, eating the right foods. And naturally, I feel like when you start losing weight, you just make better choices. It's not anything crazy, just sometimes you start, you lose 20 pounds. And the next time you go to a restaurant, you think, well, I'll just have a salad this time. Like it's a mental kind of positive movement that everybody naturally goes into. I feel that way.
Objects in motion tend to stay in motion, right?
Yeah,
Well, hey,
exactly.
let me pause you for a second,
Yeah.
okay? Because you talked about what it was like. Well, wait a minute. Here, let's back up quite a bit. You said you were at 280 and like right around 2000.
2000.
Okay, 2004. Okay, so 2017. This guy walks in to your life, and like zero in on this because like there's before and there's after. And once you hit that after, once that switch has been flipped, like it's just easier. Your mindset is everything. And you just try
100%.
to build a life, build an environment around you so that healthy living is just easier in its habits. But I think people can envision what that looks like. Like, I want to get to that. I want to be
Yeah.
able to say, like, you know what, I'm just gonna have a salad today, or you know what, I am gonna wake up at 4 o'clock, or I wake up at 5 every day, and it's just part of life now. I don't even need an alarm. I just wake up.
Yeah.
Talk to us about where was your head when, what's his name? Jason?
Jason. Yeah.
Jason,
Yeah.
when Jason, like, was there. It's not just like, I don't know what happened. What exactly was the switch? Were you already primed to get there and then just
I mean, so I I think there's a point where as humans, right, when we're dealing with weight loss, we're dealing with our own physical, just our body, right? I feel like there's a defining moment that everyone has where you can say, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of looking like this, feeling like this, being like this, eating like this, whatever it is. And then there's acceptance of, this is just life. Right. So there's one or the other. And I think that there's that moment for me, I was tired of it. I didn't know what to do. But to answer your question, I thought to myself, Jolly, I don't want to wake up at 4. I don't want to do this. Like, I mean, 3 days in, I was like, I have to do this every day. Like my only day off is Sunday. Like it wasn't the easy thing to do, but I always saw, I guess you could say, the vision, right? And the vision for me was you've been at 280 pounds before. I mean, heck, I've been at 225 pounds before, like, I mean, I was in high school, but I was there. And then I had to kind of always reflect back. And I think that when you have those reflections in life of, I remember being 225 pounds as a senior in high school and thinking to myself, man, I am big. I am so overweight. I am so whatever, insert, whatever negative
yeah.
thought you have. And then at 280 pounds, even, to lose that weight and be there, to think to yourself, man, I would love to be at 225. And so for me with Jason, and really the team at Octane, Jason was the start of my journey, and where I work out now at River City Strength, I met those individuals working out at Octane Performance. They just went and kind of started a new gym that was closer to our new house. But it's with that initial kind of jump into all of this in 2016, it was tough. It was something that I had to really kind of push through and build a habit forming healthy lifestyle that I wasn't used to. I didn't grow up in athletics. I grew up, trying to play football, but not really jiving that way. And then finding out that I was more of, a choir kid and a theater performer and jazz hands and yeah, like that was more me. Right. And so I never really put myself in any type of physical activity or physical regimen. When I started doing this fit and 50, I knew that it takes 2 to 3 weeks, right, to form a habit. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, all right, well, this is 50 days. I should at least hit the 30-day mark, and this should be some sort of habit forming for me, right? Whether I scale back and I only do, 3 days a week or 2 days a week, at least I'm doing something compared to what I was doing before. And that's just what worked for me. But that's exactly what happened. I did the fit and 50, and then when I was done, I started working out just, 2 days a week, and sometimes I would just be one day a week. And then it would turn into, I keep losing weight. I'm from 370. Now I'm down to, 340. And it's, 30 pounds is 30 pounds. I don't know if anybody just go lift a 30-pound weight. That's how much weight I lost. Right.
Yeah.
And, I would think that, like, I'd grab a weight and be like, man, Brian, you've lost 30 pounds since this journey. And I'd hold it. And I'm like, man, this is how much fat you've lost, and it was those types of reaffirming makes you think like, man, just, I can move better. I can go upstairs. I'm still winded, but I'm not as winded, right? It's like, so all these things are kind of like, I personally, in my mindset, I have to see these wins and I have to kind of put myself into these wins, right? So that way I can just keep moving forward. And then from 340 down to 320, right? 315, in that and this is all kind of, going from 2017, 2018. In 2018, I cut alcohol. I was a heavy beer drinker while I was going through this whole exercise, right? And when I say heavy, I mean, I thank God I didn't have any issues or anything with alcoholism. But I would like to have, a pint or, a couple pints of beer, 2, 3 times a night, or at a networking event in my industry. Or in doing so, it's still, that's when I really started listening to my body. I was like, man, I don't feel right. I keep teetering at this 315, 320 range. I'll never forget it. It was November of 2018. We were at a Houston Texans game, me and my best friend. And I was like, this is the last time I'm going to drink beer. And he goes,
Wow.
why? He goes, we love football. Like, the season is still going. Like, and I was like, well, not for the Texans, but, so, they did win that game against the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, go Texans. But, as I did that, I went alcohol free until 2021. It wasn't anything other than I told myself, hey, when I go out of the country with my wife, that's when I'll have another cocktail, right? And right before, and this is again where life kind of puts you. Well, let me rewind real quick. So in 2018, I quit drinking alcohol, specifically beer, because that's really all I drank. I wasn't a big liquor guy. And then in 2019, Abby and I moved to these, kind of the north part of San Antonio. And at the time, that commute from our home to Octane Athletics Performance was just too long. I mean, it was a 45-minute commute from our house to there, and it just wasn't going to work. And I was really afraid of losing this journey that I had created over, at that point, 2 full years. Very habit forming, to your point, that I had found out that one of the trainers, right, from Octane Athletic Performance opened his own gym. And it was very close, inside 20 minutes of my new house at the time. So we started working out there, and that's River City Strength. And that's the threads I'm repping today. So,
I like it.
but at River City Strength, Jesse Medellin, he formed this gym, and it's a little bit more of, it's functional strength training, so mobility, flexibility, right? And his big saying is there's nothing wrong with getting older and just being stronger, right? And having
Old
the
man
ability to
strong. That's right, damn
yeah, yeah. Did you say headstrong? Is that what you said?
it. Old man strong.
Old man strong. There you go. Yeah. Old man strong. But it's being able to catch yourself if you're going to fall, right? If you do, pick something up, knowing how to pick something up the correct way. And that's why both of those gyms were part of my journey, because, the habit forming of, hey, I really like this came from Octane to start, right? And then River City Strength has just kind of fine tuned and made all the dial turns for me, right? For what I can do today. Still alcohol free. It just wasn't my thing, like, just, hey, I don't need to drink to have a good time. I'm very, jovial, and, the glue in a lot of relationships and friendships that I have. And, like I'm sometimes I'm just the life of the party, which is great. It's like, I don't need to be on alcohol to do that. And, never a big fan of, like, nicotine, smoking, or anything like that. Occasional cigar every once in a while to, for 2 days, tasting that in your mouth going, why am I doing this? But, it ended up getting to the point where in 2021, I made that mindset of when Abby and I are out of the country, I'll have a cocktail. Like if we go to Mexico, I'm gonna want to have a margarita in Mexico. Like it's just that'll be great. So ended up going to Cancun, but a month before I went to Cancun, I did my normal physical, and jolly, I found out that I had a gluten allergy. And to think back, I cried. I did. The moment well, first I got very angry because I was like, what do you mean I have a gluten allergy at, 39 years old or whatever it was, at the time, in my 30s, my late 30s. And she said that you've always had it. You just never knew. And, sometimes we find these things out later in life. And that's exactly what happened to me in my journey. But I cried because I would only drink beer. And there's
Yeah.
so much gluten in beer. And I thought to myself, I can't get underneath this 315, 320 pound. And at the time, think about it. I quit drinking beer in 2018. I end up going to, 2021, right? It's like spring of 2021. And this doctor tells me I have a gluten allergy. And I'm still 315 pounds, 310 pounds. I cannot break under 300, only to find out it's what I'm eating.
Yeah.
And that right there was when the switch went off. And I thought, wow, what you put in your body really matters.
It
It does.
absolutely matters. That's
It matters so much. It matters to your gut health, your brain health, your heart health, your respiratory system, your blood, your sleep, even to when you do go work out, like what's actually firing off in your body and what is actually working when you go and exercise. So it's very interesting, when I found that out and I started going through that journey. And I'm very surprised that people don't know I have a gluten allergy, because if you have a food allergy, everybody knows, right? So it's like you might as well just put it in the Express News and just tell them, because I think that's the way that people with food allergies get through food allergies, is by sharing it all the time, because it's like us kind of reaffirming that, yes, you have one, yes, you have one, yes, you have one.
yeah.
Um, but, as I started to go through the gluten and pulling all that out, that's when I really started seeing the change. And I saw the change where, I brought my weight down to 280 pounds at that point. So that was, and still, having an occasional cocktail or an
Mhm.
occasional, gluten-free beer now at this point, right?
Ding.
Um,
So wait a minute. So you're at like 315, 320. You find out you have a gluten allergy,
yeah,
and then you got down to like, I mean,
280
280.
in
Like,
in a span of about a year and a half.
yeah,
I lost even more pounds just from eating right, from removing the gluten directly out of my diet. And I'm a cold turkey kind of guy. Like I could just say, all right, enough is enough. And I just go, right? I'm so blessed that God gave me that ability, right? I mean, I have plenty of faults though. Don't think I'm perfect. But I put myself in a situation where I said, hey, well, if this is affecting me and I'm going on this health journey, let me jump all in. Let
yeah.
me stop eating gluten. Let me really pull this back. And I noticed immediately,
Yeah,
yeah,
hold on just a second. So
yeah,
I think this is a really key point. So I'm really diving in, and I've learned so much in just the last couple 3 months about the biology and genetics of weight gain and weight loss. So what you just described is what countless people are undergoing under the surface, just they're not aware of,
yeah,
because you think like, what's wrong with me? I can't break this 315. Working out, you're eating better, you cut out beer. Like it was funny. I was with some friends last week, and there was three of us together, and like all of us just kind of naturally, we're just like not drinking as much. Like I used to be a craft beer guy all the time,
same,
and when you cut out craft beer as much as I like it, and like Shiner Bock, it's like the official beer of Texas. Like it just tastes good, and
yeah,
you're with friends. But when you cut that out, like you've still got friends, and nights are still fun, and parties and everything. But on the biology, like you didn't know this, and you think it's like what's wrong with me? Like I just need more willpower, more discipline. But it's not just you. Like you're internalizing that struggle. But
mhm,
for society still at large, we're going in the right direction, Starlet. But for society at large, they see somebody with obesity, and you're like, damn, you just like you need to eat less and move more. You just need to have
mhm,
some more discipline, right? And that's, man, if somebody has is struggling with obesity, man, there is just so much. There could be some mental health issues. There could be some abuse issues. There could
yep,
be like
trauma,
genetics and epigenetics and allergies, and like there's countless reasons why somebody has obesity. We have to figure that out, but we also
yeah,
have to be empathetic and have some grace towards folks, and not shame them, and not hold bias and stigma in our minds, and that's like we've got to figure this out as a society right now
Yeah.
because it's like every time I hear somebody struggling with these, and I've had my own struggles. I mean, we talked about this, but every time I hear somebody, just man, it just makes me sad. Like there's absolutely no reason for all that shame. Like it's
Yeah.
just nothing we can do about it. Like it's our genetics, it's our biology, and it's the environment that we live in.
Yeah,
So
that's
I think
100%. And I mean, I have my fair share of, growing up with trauma. I mean, food was a coping mechanism for my household. My mom, I'm one of, three boys, from, my mom and dad's original marriage. And there's four of us total. So I'm sorry, I said three boys, but I have three brothers. So four boys altogether. And, when we celebrated, we ate. When we were sad, we ate. When something bad happened, we had food around us to make us feel better, and my mom, God bless her and God rest her soul. She was an amazing cook, to the day she died. Like, and it really, to answer your question, like, or to kind of go back to what you were saying there is it really did make me think, and the reason I kind of, I cried over this was because I realized that, man, Brian, you're working out, you're giving yourself such a hard time for not being able to get under this target goal that you basically set for yourself, which really, I wasn't realizing that to go from 370 to 315, I mean, dude, that's
that's a
55
huge
pounds,
win.
right?
That's a
Yeah,
huge
but
win.
I'm thinking, I got to get better. I got to get better. I got to get better. And, and when I found out about the gluten allergy, it was almost like, oh, you had like, this little thing inside you that was just always going to prevent it until you knew about it. Now that you know about it, the anger came with with really a lot of the self-realization of like, man, it really wasn't my fault of lack of exercise or eating the wrong things. It was more so like, hey, it's really time to make that dial turn and grow within this health journey and understand what you put in your mouth really does matter, right? 80% of it is, what do they say? 80% is half the battle, right? 80% of it is what you put in your mouth when it comes to weight loss. And I didn't really understand that until that gluten allergy. I jumping on that, I did lose the weight. Now I'm at 280 pounds and I'm feeling better, right? And it was actually 2023. I talked to my doctor and I was like, it's not really there, right? Like something's going on where I just, something in my body's not feeling right. I mean, I had some blood work done and I found this test. I'm not even sure if it's FDA approved, but it basically just measures what foods cause inflammation in your body. I strongly encourage everybody to do it. It's called P88 is the test. And, I can share some of that stuff with you, for when you drop this, but it essentially allowed me to know what foods specifically cause high inflammation in my body to kind of cause similar things, stomach issues, digestive issues, leaky gut really is probably the best way to say it. I was never diagnosed with leaky gut, but I think I got to the point where had I continued going through life the way it was, that's what would have happened, right? I would have had leaky gut syndrome, probably all the things that come with, gastrointestinal issues, like, stomach issues and all of that. But as I found that out in May of last year, actually, and I went cold turkey on cutting all the good things out. And I'm telling you, this list, Jolly, is crazy, right? It's, chicken, avocado, black pepper, garlic, salmon, green beans, carrots. I mean, I had to take all that out. It was
What?
causing inflammation in
Wow.
my body. White potato, sweet potato. I mean, you name it, all the things that everyone goes, I love all of that. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, so did I, but it was things that were causing inflammation in my body. And the reason why I was okay cutting all those major foods out, I ate a lot of turkey. I ate a lot of, lean red meat, tuna, I can have tuna, flounder, like other types of wild fish, right? And what I found is that, we can sit here and talk about in nauseum the FDA, but like the foods that are kind of like mass produced in a fast rush, high demand way, those were the ones that were affecting my body. And I ate a lot of all those foods. And I think that, too much, we all know the saying, right? Too much of anything is bad for you. I was probably just eating a lot of it throughout my lifetime. I did grow up on, a lot of chicken. So that made sense, that chicken just, I need to chill out on that and eggs and all those things. But because of the gluten allergy and going cold turkey, and because of the gluten allergy and going cold turkey and realizing, right, that if I cut it out, I'll shed the weight to feel more healthy. It wasn't always just about losing weight and looking better, right? The vanity thing is kind of not where my head's at. My head was just wanting my body to and feel like it should, like the human body should, right?
You want to feel
That's all I
good.
ever wanted. That's all I ever wanted. I want to be able to wake up, and not feel groggy. I just want to get up and go. I want to be able to lift. I want to be able to, exercise. I want to be able to play with the kids. I want to be able to have healthy habits so they can see it and want to jump on that journey with me as a family, which, my wife has done, the kids have done. We're very mentally, very big on mental health, very big on spiritual health, and very big on, body health, right? So that's kind of our main family dynamics of a lot of what kind of serves us. But when I went from the gluten allergy to having this test done, remember this gluten allergy happened in, 2021, and here I am again in 2024 finding all this stuff out about all these inflammatory foods. And guess what wasn't on the list of causing inflammation? Gluten. That's right. Because I had taken out of my diet for so long, I can now have gluten. It even said I could go have, what is it called? Barley, like basically barley and like brewer's yeast is what it was. I could have brewer's yeast, I could have barley, I could have all those things. And I thought to myself, thank you, God, I can have a beer again, like, but
Wow.
it put me in a mindset of saying, okay, Brian, if you go cold turkey and if you really laser in on this stuff and you do want to go through this journey in life, right? And if you start removing these foods that cause inflammation, because there were times where I'd eat a salad, a chicken salad, like with no dressing, and I'd feel like, oh, Brian, like I look at myself in the mirror and be like, did you gain weight? Like I really hard on myself, right? And that's a struggle that I think a lot of people work on, and I have worked on my self-deprecating humor, right? I used to do that all the time. My, what is it called? Self-worth, and just kind of, like the negative talk in your head of like, man, you look terrible in that outfit, like those things I have worked on. And I know that there's people listening to this that think to themselves, man, I just did that this morning or
Yeah.
last night, and that is something that, truly when you start giving yourself grace, right? Because of the situation that you're in, whether it be I have food allergies or I just need to buckle down because trauma or something I went through in life really prevented me from wanting to grow forward. The moment you realize that, that's that growth moment, and that's when life just pushes you in the positive way. And then you have different sort of, conversations with yourself, and they're a lot more positive, they're a lot more graceful, they're a lot more forgiving. And I hope that for everybody. I really do. I want that for my kids, and I want it for everybody outside, in the real world.
When you
But when I
when you
had this
realize,
whole, you go ahead.
man, I got to focus in on this for a second because when you make that mind shift and you realize it's not me, like you have find your newfound self-worth and your own value, life is just better.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much better. You learn to be appreciative of all your relationships, so much more appreciative of your family. I'm like things don't bother you as much anymore. Like that's what we should all try to get to. So I love that you
Yeah.
shared that. Thanks, man.
It's, also when you see somebody who, maybe gets angry at something, and in your mind you're thinking, man, that's so trivial. Like, why would you get angry at that? You know what I mean? Like all the way down to even getting cut off, when you're driving, right? If somebody cuts you off and people are like, beep, 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 and
Yeah.
it's in my mind, it's like I always just go ahead. I don't do that out the window so they can see it. That's just not the gesture you want to do. But, it's in my head, I just say, go ahead. There's something going on. You woke up angry, you woke up feeling whatever, or maybe you're in a rush. Maybe you got to get your kid to daycare because you're in that 9 to 5 and traffic always messes it up. And if you're another minute late, they're going to let you go, and that'll just change your entire mindset there. And I don't want you to lose your job. Get in front of me. Go. Like if I feel like if you have that sort of mindset, life is it's just easier to get through because life is going to keep throwing these curveballs at you.
Yeah.
And Jolly, you're going to get knocked down and you're going to feel like you're running through quicksand, right? You're going to have moments where you just feel like, I don't know how anybody gets through this, right? But it's not going to define you. Whatever you're going through will not define you. It's literally a ballpoint pen on a blank piece of paper. Put a dot in the middle of that page. And that if the blank piece of paper is life, that little dot in the center is your problem you're going through right now. And when you back up and look at that and go, it's really not that big. That's what helps you get through it. And my weight loss journey, was not going to define me, or I guess you could say my being overweight was not going to define me. I was going to make the change. I was going to, feel better so that that way I could have longer lasting, right, life, as much as God will bless me with, but I wanted to get healthy for my wife, for my kids. But the number one reason I wanted to get healthy was for me, right? And, when I cut these foods out, 280 turned into 260, and then 260 turned into 245, right? And officially I'm at 242 pounds. So I weighed myself this morning. It was like 240.8. So I want to say 242 is what I'm going to say. But I round up in mortgage math, but I don't round up in weight loss.
Funny.
But, again, going back and saying, 129, 128 pounds, to lose that. I mean, what is that? That's a seventh grader. You know what I mean? Like
That's a
that
lot
right
of
there. Yeah, that's when I get to look back and think to myself, like, not you did it, because I still want to continue to keep going, right? But it's you're doing it. You're doing it, Brian, and you're going down the journey that you wanted to. And I mean, I feel like there's these I've been taught actually through Jesse Medellin and the River City Strength team is that there's three real big defining moments in your life, right? 40, which I was, I feel like my body, I just started working out at the right time at like, 36, 37.
Mhm.
But 40 is usually when you start recognizing big health issues.
Yep.
You start kind of feeling different about yourself. That's where you see a lot of the midlife crises kind of come into play for people, right? Because they just want to change.
Where
A
I
lot
had
of times
mine.
it's not, yeah, a lot of times it's not lifestyle. A lot of times it's just, I want to buy a new Corvette, or I want to buy a second home so the family and I can, do this or whatever, right? 60 is the next one where, at 60 years old, you usually start seeing a lot more health issues. A lot of people in their 60s have a tendency to have, like major health issues like heart attacks, strokes, they find, different types of issues with like gout or, whatever it may be. And then at 80, so 40, 60, 80. 80 sometimes can just be, being called home, right? Death. It could be a major heart attack. It could be a stroke. It could be all of those things. And, when I was being, I guess you could say, programmed and taught to know those things, it was like, man, I want to do something better with my life, and I want to not have these milestones hit me as hard as, I mean, they still hit me, at 43 to still have issues of, I have to have a routine in the morning just to kind of get everything working, right?
Yep.
It's like, hey, welcome to 43, Brian. But at the same time, my mom, she, again, never really, she got healthy at times and there were things that, she had done, but she never quite got the help that she needed. And she passed away at 65. I mean, I lost my mom at a very, very young age. And that was an entire experience to go through as well, right? You know, at my age. But when I lost her at 20 in 2022, she was overweight. She was obese, whatever you want to call it. She had 4 stents put in just because she just wasn't feeling great. And that was an emergency kind of surgery into her heart, got her going. And then a week later, she popped the prescribed blood thinner pill and passed a clot. And that was it. And it was such a sad, tragic moment for my brothers and I, right? I mean, we're a very tight family, very trauma bonded, just the way we grew up. And I will say that, like, that was a moment of saying, okay, Brian, you got to make sure that that's not something that happens to you. Anything can happen. We don't know our journey. We don't know where God's leading us.
When did she pass away?
She passed away September 12th of 2022. So we're about to
Yeah.
come up on, that
Mm.
3-year anniversary. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
But those, looking back though, before, my mother passed away, when I really started doing this, I lost my grandma to, heart issues. my dad has congestive heart failure now, right? But he's always been on the other side. He's been like a big time runner, and he's always just been exercising, and he's got great genes and genetics because he's still rocking. God keeps on having him rock and roll through. And him and my stepmom Sherry, they have an amazing diet. So and they have for years, been able to kind of, just keep health and everything right. And I guess I can say is like through the loss that I saw in my early 30s, late 30s, really made me think, okay, you don't have to go like that. You don't have to be in that position, right? But to have my mom affected with basically, obesity and overweight and heart issues and health issues, it was even more of a, I guess you could say like reaffirming what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, right?
Mhm.
That was my mom's journey, and that's my mother. And as much as you can sit here and think to yourself, whoever's listening to this or watching this, is that, oh, I can help them or I can change them. I mean, that was my mother, and I
Yeah.
couldn't. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Numerous talks to the point where it would get frustrating, to the point where I had to just say, okay, mom, I just got to accept you for who you are, because it's causing me more angst and pain talking to you about you losing weight than anything else. And I don't want to have resentment, and so I was so blessed that the last 2 years of her life, it was very just, mom, I love you for you. Like, if this is your life, this is your life. Who am I to change that, right? But at the same time, whoever's listening to this, know that if you have that partner, or if it starts with, you have to have it in you. You have to want it, right? So when you're going through that journey, know that you're going through that journey for a reason. I'm never the guy to sit there and preach and tell people like, well, you know what you should do, you know what you should do, you know what you should do. I'm not that guy. If somebody comes to me and says, how did you do it? I'll tell them how I did it. Well, why did you do it? I'll tell them why I did it. Well, where can I do that? I will introduce them to the people that can.
Yeah.
If you're on I-10 and 1604, there's Jason Benavides and Octane Athletic Performance. If you're on 281 and 1604 or Castle Hills area, I got Jesse Medellin and his team at River City Strength. So like, I got two different sides of San Antonio you guys can play in.
That's
So for
awesome.
me, my mother's death, as sad as it was, and as tragic and as much as it hurt, right? It was realization of, okay, like you have to want it for yourself, right? Or, the worst could happen, right? And depending on how you look at it, right? So that was really just kind of, I guess you could say, the journey to continue to keep going, right? So if you kind of follow that path, my mom passes away in 2022. I went about a year, right? Never getting over it, but just kind of getting through it. And then in 2023, in the fall, is when I started having, these questions about why I still feel like my body isn't performing the way it should. And then in 2024 is when I jumped in with that blood work, and I realized what was causing inflammation. And I'm sure you know as well as I do, inflammation is the key driver in every illness, sickness.
Yeah.
I feel like crap. I look like crap. I can't think. I can't do. I mean, a lot of it is just inflammation, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. And if you can tackle inflammation, and I'm so blessed and honored to say that the reason why I'm able to be so hyper vigilant and so focused on just doing this way is because I don't want to take a shortcut. I did the diet pills. I never did the gastric bypass. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not a big surgery guy. Like, I never have. Thank God, no surgeries in my life. So, not trying to have any. And I wasn't gonna do, I wasn't gonna do Ozempic or Manjaro or anything like that, only because I was never diabetic. I was always borderline diabetic. I was never diabetic, and I didn't want to take any type of weight loss supplement. If that's for people because, they want to boost their direction and get a jump start at it, perfect. I've been there. I've done that. The only problem that I've had with that is that they've never lasted. Like, it's never been something that went, you know what I mean, the distance with me forever. To be down to 280 pounds because I was on a weight loss pill, from 350, and then to balloon back up to 370, right? Like that was in my head constantly. I don't want to take leaky gut syndrome pills. I don't want to take pills that are going to help me, use the bathroom. Like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to know what I'm putting in my body, because obviously that's what's causing this, so that way it can perform the way I want it to perform. And that is what really drove me to just focus in on the food piece, focus in on the nutrition piece, right? And that's been a game changer. It's been a game changer with how I feel, how I react. I mean, I used to be very hot-headed. Every little thing would boom set me off and derail me and make me go different directions. I don't know why he looked at me like that. I don't know why he just crossed his arms when I said that. Like it just, it would
Yeah,
sit in my head and live rent free, and I'd dwell on it. And then I'd go and have a conversation, and it's like, what do you mean? I always like crossing
I
my
know.
arms. I didn't mean anything by it, but when you're not feeling right inside,
Yeah.
subconsciously, all these other things just magnify. So now I'm not sitting here saying I have this Zen-like state, right, where I'm, just like kind of like, okay, like, yeah, it's nothing like that, but it has allowed me to form different habits of waking up without I don't even need an alarm. I just kind of like wake up. My alarm goes off, and sometimes I'm like, man, Brian, you beat the alarm. It's like, and when I don't beat the alarm and the alarm wakes me up, I usually feel bad. I feel like crap, and sometimes it's because we went to a Texas Roadhouse for our 20th anniversary with the kids and my mother-in-law. And, I'm sitting there eating it going like, the sodium levels in this are so high. And my goodness, like, I really shouldn't be eating mushrooms, but I'll have one or two, and next thing I know, it's like the alarm woke me up, and I'm getting up and I'm jolly. I'm just going, what have I done? So but I want to feel that, because that tells me that what I'm doing is working, right? That when I'm eating clean and when I'm eating right, then I find myself being able to perform life at a way better form, right? I mean, I can perform, I feel like life is our Olympics, right? And, we're all competing against ourselves, right? I'm not competing against you in life. I'm competing against myself in life. And at the end, when I am called, I get to look back on this resume and either say, wow, I did some things over here that are pretty questionable, and I got to ask for some forgiveness. Or, hey, I did everything that I could, right, with everything that I knew I needed, and I gave it my all of my best effort, and I finished at whatever place, you rank me at, and I'd much rather go that direction, right? I'd much rather go the direction of being in control of it, feeling great, being able to, think clearly. I mean, if you have a gluten allergy, you deal with foggy brain syndrome. And I don't know if anybody knows what that feels like, but if you wake up and you just feel like your thoughts are just cloudy, and the best thing I can think of is Benadryl. If you've ever taken Benadryl, like a heavy dose because your allergies were real bad, and you wake up the next morning and you just feel like you're in a fog or you're still asleep, that's foggy brain syndrome. And if you're experiencing that, I mean, it could just be a simple food, like reduction in your diet. Take something out of your diet and it will cure that. And I promise you, and I know it sounds crazy, but
No, yeah, it's a lot of people we don't have the awareness level yet
yeah,
of this, because so many people are feeling like what you and I both used to feel like. And it was neat. I want to go back a few minutes because you were talking about, you had two overlapping things, your spirituality and your exercise. And I've mentioned this several times on the podcast, but it's just one of my favorite visuals. So my favorite pastor several years ago, he had this whiteboard, and he drew like a stick figure of Jesus, little stick figure guy with a beard. And then another stick figure guy over here. He's like, okay, this is you and this is Jesus. And there's a line. And his point was like, Jesus doesn't care where you are on your line, right? Every single person,
yeah,
all 8 billion of us, are on a different journey to their spirituality on that line. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters which direction are you going. Are you
yep,
walking towards Jesus? Are you walking away?
amen,
The same thing, you could do the same visual for exercise. Like, this is where you are now. This is where you want to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're not looking for perfection, right? This is
yeah,
better. It doesn't matter where you are on that line. Everybody's on a different continuum on that line. We've
I
had
love
family
that,
members, different parts of that on that line. We've been at different places on that line. Which direction are you turning? Are you facing? Are you trying to get healthier? You trying to have a more meaningful life? Are you trying to have better relationships, be a better dad, be a better husband, be a better friend? Everything.
yeah.
When you're facing the right direction. Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter where you start. You start at 370 something, right? Now I'm feeling at 53. I've been on this journey for a while. December will be 14 years as a leukemia survivor. I don't want to say addicted because that has
First
a
of all,
lot.
that's awesome. I'm just gonna clap for you. I'm clapping
Thanks,
for you
man.
there.
Thanks, man. And it's crazy. I saw somebody last week I hadn't seen in a while, and they're like, "Man, Jolly, you've been like last time I saw you, you looked healthier, and now you're even." It's pretty crazy. Like the weight I'm at now, like I'm 2 pounds less than I was when I went through officer candidate school back in 1993, in like the best shape of my life. But I'm 53 now, which is
Yeah.
insane. But
Heck
I'm
yeah.
always trying to get healthier. It's not an addiction. It's just like what brings me joy.
Mhm.
Like I'm working on with my physical therapist now. I had a major ankle surgery 7 months ago in January, and I'm like halfway there to full recovery. But like my surgeon was cool. He's like, "What is there anything else you want to tell me? Is there anything else like you want to be able to do that you can't do now?" And that was one of the coolest things a doc has ever asked me. And I'm like, "Yeah, I want to be able to do like get into plyometrics again. I want to do box jumps. I want to do like there's this high rocks race that I want to do next year. So I want to be able to do like burpee broad jumps and like be able to do like walking lunges carrying kettlebells for the race, and
Yeah.
I can't do that now." And he's like, "That's fantastic. Let's get you a prescription for a physical therapist." And to be able to tell my DPT, like, "Hey, these are the three things I want to be able to do," and he's like, "That's fantastic." Most people just come and say like, "I don't want back pain anymore," and then the back
Yeah.
pain's gone to loss. But like this path you were on when you were still anywhere more than where you are now, you're on one path, right? And now you're on a different path. And it's like, what path do you want to take? It's really, really hard to change directions. But
Yeah.
man, when you start doing like one tiny little habit at a time, you get that stack effect,
Yeah.
and it might be months, it might be years. It's probably going to be years that like all those little tiny habits that you've been stacking up, like that's a new life. It's
Yeah.
hard as hell to get there, but man, like life is so good right now. It
Well,
just
I
everything.
love I love that. And one of the key things for me was when I started this journey at 370, I just wanted to get back to 280. That was it. And then when I got to 280, I was like, "Ooh, let's get to 250 so you can go skydiving." I've always wanted to go skydiving, and I was always too big to go skydiving. So I'm like, "You know what? Let's go skydiving." And now at, 242.8 pounds, I'm thinking to myself, "I'll wait till I'm 225 because I'm starting getting scared of skydiving." I still want to go, but let's give it a little bit more. Let's go a little longer.
Just in case. That's
But yeah, it's thank you, and you're absolutely right. It's I think of it as a big flywheel, and when you start kind of pulling that thing down, it doesn't move very fast. And then as you eventually see go, like your flywheel is just going, and you keep hitting it every morning, right? And you keep
yeah.
pulling it down. And that's exactly what I hope people hear in this is that you didn't put all that weight on overnight. You're not going to lose it overnight, right? Miracle pills and all those different things may help jumpstart stuff, but it's creating the habits in life and creating the healthy habits to move forward that when that direction turns, even if the ship is just turned, if that island is right here and then, tomorrow it just moved that much, at least it didn't go this direction. It went the right direction, right? And as long as you're turning the direction you need to, eventually the ship will be going the opposite direction than what you were doing before. And that's when you'll notice that your attitude, your mannerisms, how you treat people, more importantly, how you treat yourself will change, right? If you want it to be about vanity, it can be about vanity, but I promise you, if you just get healthier, the looks, all of those things will just naturally happen, right? You'll make better choices in life and you'll start seeing that. But really finding your self-worth and your purpose, right, is where I think that this fitness journey has gotten me. It's gotten me to a point where, I love, oh man, I'm getting kind of choked up saying this, but I love myself for who I am. I do feel that I am the best version of myself than I've ever been. I feel like I'm the best version, to my kids. And, my wife and I wake up every day in love. And, we're able to focus on what matters most. And, that's ourselves and our family and we have literally everything under our roof that we need, right? We're not out trying to chase the next new sports car, the next new car, the next big house. Like it's not about that, man. It's about just having what you need to keep navigating life in the healthiest way, right? And mentally, physically, and spiritually. That's us.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful place to end on. I love that. I love that. This has been fantastic, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you. I think we've gotten pretty close in just a very short time, just because
Yeah.
I don't know, we're both aligned on a lot of things, and man, I really appreciate that we've gotten to know each other, and this you sharing your journey today. You've been so vulnerable. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The last question I'll ask you is, and you don't have to have an answer here, but is there anything else you want to share that you haven't? Or if somebody, how about this? If somebody came to you this afternoon, or saw you at church today, like, Brian, like, I've been watching you, like, you just, you're an inspiration for me. Like, where do I start? What would you tell them?
Man, that's a great question. I would say start small. Like, just what's one thing you can do different within the next 12 hours that you would have never done before? That is not going to discourage you from the bigger picture and the journey that you want to take. If that's, I'm going to go outside and I'm just gonna sit on my front lawn and just get some sun. Okay. It is, as long as that's different than what you did the 12 hours earlier. Why I just, binge watched an entire Netflix series. Okay, well then yes, that's growth. So just start small. Just get that ship going one direction. Turn that flywheel just, pull that flywheel just a little bit. Insert whatever metaphor you want, but it would just be start small, and then you're going to naturally feel the win because subconsciously, hey, I did that. Hey, I went out in the sun and I got a little color and I feel like I look a little better. Like there's I mean, unfortunately, as humans, we need sometimes, those types of affirmations for ourselves. We need to see those
Totally.
results to continue to keep going on in the journey, right? And that's, man, that's what I would tell somebody.
That's fantastic advice. Get comfortable making changes and feeling that win. You're like, hey, I did this. Celebrate those, man. Celebrate tiny wins all day long.
All day.
That is just fantastic advice, Brian. Thank you so much, man. This has been really cool.
Brother, you rock. Thank you so much for having me. Look forward to seeing your journey as well. And if anybody ever needs to reach out or just have a conversation, I love meeting new people. So feel free to send them my way if they reach out. And you guys can know how to find me. Just Google Brian Gutierrez Neo Home Loans, NEO, like the Matrix. So yeah.
I love that. I love it. Well, cool, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate
All
you.
right, brother. Appreciate
All
you.
right.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much for listening. Please rate and review the podcast on the platform of your choice so we can reach more people and more people are recommended this podcast. And if you really liked it, the single best way you can help us grow is by telling your friends. Now, for all the legal stuff. The views and opinion expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. For my day job, I'm an employee of AbbVie and appear on this podcast on my own accord and not in the professional capacity as an AbbVie employee. All viewpoints provided are my personal opinions and not intended to reflect those of my employer. If you have any questions or comments, please shoot me an email at jollie@interrupthunger.org. Let's go spread some joy, people.